What is up, guys? This is Jason over here at Cog Hill Farm, and this is another episode of the Cogcast Podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, we're glad to have you. If you're listening to this on iTunes or Spotify or Podbean or Stitcher or TuneIn Radio, we're glad you're here too. Just want to thank y'all for I don't think I mentioned this in the last episode, but just thank y'all for an awesome year last year, and glad y'all are here, and can't wait to see what 2019 has in store for us here on the farm. And I hope y'all had a wonderful new year, and I hope you have an amazing 2019. So what has been going on? It is finally stopped raining a little bit. Got the tractor stuck. If you don't follow us on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, go check those out. You'll see I post a lot on all three of those platforms, and you'll see where Mrs. Cog has got the tractor sunk. I haven't had time to try to get it out yet, but it is it's pretty bad. Hoping this weekend we can get that sucker out. But it is stuck in a spot that's never wet, honestly. Where it is stuck, and it is stuck. I mean, it's on the frame. This thing is stuck. This area is never wet. It's never muddy. But after months and months of solid days, how many ever days it's been of rain, this area is saturated, and no one to blame. I mean, she's just used to riding over there. It's where we keep some feed barrels and with feed in it. And she was just picking one up because we relocated the meat birds, and she was just going to relocate the feed with it, and the tractor sunk. What's happening with us now is we had one day where it did rain a little bit, but for the last week it's been pretty and sun shining. But since we live on a hill, all that water on top of the hill, since it's rained for so many days, it's not soaking in the ground. Or if it is, it's just barely soaking in, and then gravity's doing its thing, and all that water is just slowly and methodically just coming down to the bottom of the hill, and at the bottom is where our farm is. And so it's bad. It's just really, really bad. I've never seen it like this, and we've been here for, I think, 12 years now. So it's pretty rough. It's bad. But what I wanted to talk today about was getting into, or how did we get into farming, or how can you get into farming, or how can you make it profitable, or what can you do, or how do you get started? And I really wanted to say that for the most part, honestly, it's not that hard. It's really, really not that hard getting started. What we did was, of course, we had this was really a homestead or a hobby farm. And a lot of people want to know, is there a difference between a homestead and a farm? You know what? I didn't look it up, and I guess I probably should have. But this is Jason Smith's Cog Hill Farm definition between a homestead and a farm. And the way I see it is, and I may be totally wrong on this, and I probably need to look it up, but the difference between a homestead and a farm, in my opinion, is the farm is more of a business to make money and to make profit. Homestead is a way of life, a lifestyle to provide for you and your family. A farm is to provide for other families and make profit. To me, that's the difference. And I probably need to look this up, and there's a lot of people listening to this going, "You're an idiot. That's not the difference." But that's what I think of, the difference between the two. And so we were a small homestead, and we were just having fun, a hobby farm, doing things around here that we wanted to do, buying chickens for eggs, buying chickens because they're cool, and it just grew into a business. Now, we first started out Everybody does. Everybody probably starts out, and even people that are just doing it for fun will sell their eggs. They will. But the laws regarding selling eggs are not that strict at all, honestly. You can sell your eggs if somebody comes to your farm or homestead. There's really not that much there. I mean, you got your basic, I always call them common sense laws. Or that's what I call them, common sense laws, and that is really usually label laws. And those label laws are typically, and this is going to be like your USDA across the board. Doesn't matter what state you live in. Label laws are common sense laws, and that is don't eat raw stuff that'll make you sick and keep it at a proper temperature. Those typically have to be done almost on everything, especially if you're selling to a business or that type of thing. But egg laws in Alabama, and each state's different too. Now, that's the other thing I want to be sure I stress this. All states have their own guidelines. So what I'm saying may be true for your state. It may not be. Always call your ag department or your county extension office, and they should help you because they've always been helpful for us here in Alabama. So we called about eggs because we actually had a market or a grocery store that was interested in selling our eggs because we had a pretty big flock and we were getting a ton of eggs. So we checked into it, and honestly, it's not that bad for egg laws here in Alabama. Basically, you have to grade the egg, and that means the way it looks. Basically, and you can do that by candling the egg and see if the yolk and I'm sure you get better at it if you do it a lot. You can tell a really good, nice, tight egg compared to one that may have a double yolk in it or a little spot in it or something like that that's totally edible, but that wouldn't be considered grade A. Or if something's different with the shell, if it has calcium, there's the perfect egg versus the non-perfect egg, basically what I'm trying to say. That's one rule. The other one is they got to be sized. Large, extra large, extra, extra large. That's got to be done. And what I'm telling you is got to be on the carton, on some type of label. It's got to be on the carton. Also on the carton has to be some type of contact information. The name of the farm, possibly an address of some sort, phone number, some way. I'm assuming that if something goes wrong with an egg, that you can be contacted. Okay, so that gets us, so we got three things now. You got your grade, your size, your contact information, of course your common sense laws, like I said, about temperature and eating raw stuff. And the other one is you have to have the Julian date of when that egg was packaged. Not when it was harvested, when it was packaged. That's egg laws. And the Julian date to me is kind of sketchy a little bit. Why do they allow, or why do they do a Julian date? To me, it's just so the consumer doesn't see on there when those eggs were packaged. That's just my opinion. I may be totally wrong on that because Julian dating doesn't look like regular dating. It's some type of code that if you were a business and you did that, you would probably know how to do it if you've done it 100 times to date out something in Julian dating, or you got some type of program or a cheat sheet that helps you put the Julian date on the carton. But that is your egg laws. And getting back to the Julian dating, the rule of thumb is that generally speaking, when you buy a carton of eggs that are not from your local farmer, that come from an industrial farm, by the time those eggs have gone through the process and been finally packaged and put on the shelf, and you buy it and it's in your home, that egg is generally 4 weeks old at that point. So I think that has maybe that's why they do the Julian dating. So most people don't know that. I don't know. That's just my opinion. So that's it with egg laws. So we were super excited about this. Here's the kicker for a small time egg farmer. You have to find you a price that people are willing to pay for fresh. We use non-GMO layer feed, so that's a little bit more. So you're talking about fresh, free range, pasture raised, whatever term you want to use, because the industrial farming's already screwed all those up for us. But for a local, for real free range and for real pasture raised egg, non-GMO, organic, if you can get organic feed, what is the market that people, or what is the price that people are willing to pay for that? That's what you have to figure out. In our area, $3 a dozen was your common baseline price here. If yours were free range and you're using a non-GMO feed, you could bump it up to possibly the $4 range and maybe $5 range, but $4 was a happy medium and you could sell those eggs. Here's the kicker. Cartons. Cartons are not cheap. They're not. Unless you're buying 25,000 cartons, for the most part, they're not going to be cheap. So you have to buy cartons, and you're talking roughly 75 cents a carton, maybe $1 a carton. Think about the feed that you have done spent. By the time we did the math on this, we would end up making 50 cents for a dozen eggs, something like that. It was crazy. It was not worth all the work. Now, if you could get $6.50 for a dozen eggs, it might be worth the work for you. It may be totally worth it to you. But for us, it just wasn't worth it. So then we were just selling our general, we wasn't selling them to the grocery store. We were selling them to, the general public. They were coming to the farm. And again, the laws are way more lenient that way. And you'll find out that's the case with meat chickens and other things as well. If they come to your place, you don't have to have, or I'll take that back. With meat chickens, they have to come to your place, or you go to a farmer's market. Farmer's market and your farm are the two general places where you can sell things without getting in trouble or without being inspected, that kind of thing. That's the general law here in Alabama. Now, like I said, it could be different anywhere else. But with eggs, so we were selling eggs, and the thing about eggs our experience with eggs was that you would have a customer that would buy from you for 4 weeks straight. Great customer, buying 3 dozen a week, 4 weeks straight. Then the next 4 weeks, you never hear a word out of them. So you're like, well, I guess I lost this guy. I don't know what's going on. Then the next week, that 5th week, they call wanting their 3 dozen eggs. So that just becomes very, very hard to keep up with. Now, you're going to have some that are just steady Eddie. They're going to be awesome customers. They're going to get 3 or 4 dozen eggs every week, never miss a beat. Every now and then they may go on vacation. They don't need eggs, blah, blah, blah. But you're going to have, or we had a lot of customers that would gung-ho start coming in, buying eggs like gangbusters, and then they just disappear. Then a few weeks down the road or a month down the road, they re-back appear, and that cycle just became so hard because you would have times where you didn't have enough eggs. You're thinking, God, I need more chickens. I need more chickens. I got all these people want eggs. And then 3 weeks from there, you had 28 dozen eggs in your refrigerator and you can't get rid of them. So that's when we made a decision to just stop doing eggs altogether for us. But that eggs in general got us going on the business side. So I don't want to discourage anybody from not doing eggs. The eggs was the gateway for us. So we got rid of almost all our chickens. Now we recently, got us some chickens back up. We're using the Polishes because we do like old heritage breed chickens. And so we're doing Polish chickens now, but they're so young, and we're getting a little bit of eggs now, but not many. And I got one hardcore customer, and that is James Beard Chef Scott Peacock, and he's my biggest customer. And so we're really just growing eggs for us and him, and that's really it for us on the egg side. But we learned a lot about marketing a little bit. We learned a lot about pricing and the business side of farming from eggs. So without that egg experience, we probably wouldn't have grown into what we are now. So then what happened is we got our confidence built up. We got gung-ho. We called the ag department and asked them about meat chickens. The law in Alabama is 1,000 to 20,000, and this gets really confusing. And when we called and asked them, and it's like, are you going to, and this is basically what we're told, are you going to sell off your farm, or are you going to sell to the public via like a restaurant like we're doing now? And we were originally just selling to the public. Well, if you're selling to the public, you fall under the 1,000 chicken rule or poultry rule, and that is, as long as you stay under 1,000 birds a year, you are exempt from USDA inspections, or you can do a voluntary inspection. So basically, you're USDA exempt. You don't have to have your meat doesn't have to be inspected by a USDA inspector. So that's what we were doing, and how we got started is that we basically figured out what was a good price and what's market price. And you can go to the USDA website, and they have on there price list for whole homegrown, what I call homegrown, pasture-raised animals. So there's pasture-raised turkey, there's pasture-raised chicken, there is, duck. All that pricing's in there, and it gives you a median from low to high. And then you can start searching around in your area at other farms that are doing it and see what their pricing is. And that's what we did. And that's how we came up with the price of $4.25 a pound for our chickens, for a whole chicken. So then we decided, can we do this? So we toured a farm that was smaller than ours, and they were raising them in their front yard and selling them to a high-end catering service and food truck. So in a metropolitan area in Birmingham, Alabama, which is about an hour and a half north of us. So we were like, okay, after we saw their operation, we decided we could do this. And then so we took a poll, basically. We polled all our friends. We got on social media and shot out, a question out there. If we raised free-range, non-GMO chickens here at our place, would you be willing to pay $4.25 a pound for it? And we got a lot of feedback back. And so we were like, okay, cool. So then the next step was the hardest step, and that was buying the equipment. There would be it would be almost impossible, in my opinion, to do 40 or 50 birds every 4 to 8 weeks, or whatever you decided to do. And we were early on. We were doing it every eight weeks, so every 2 months, and we were doing around 40 to 50 birds. And you're gonna have to have the equipment. There's just no doubt about it. And I looked at making my own chicken plucker, using the turkey fryer for a scalder, but just the more research I did on it, the more research. It just, if we're going to be a business and we're going to do this right, then we need to get the right equipment to do it with. And so there's some cheaper chicken processing equipment out there, and then there's some good stuff. And we did the good stuff. We went with Featherman equipment, which is kind of a higher end processing equipment for smaller operations like us. And it's not cheap. I'm going to be honest with you. It is not cheap. Off the top of my head right now in this podcast, I cannot tell you how much we paid for that stuff off the top of my head. Go to their website, go to featherman.com and look and see. And we just got a plucker and a scalder, and that's all we got. We got their plucker and scalder. We used traffic cones for processing cones, and that was basically it. Now we have originally got rid of the traffic cones. They were a pain in the neck. We bought some cheaper cones. That was a pain in the neck. Then we ended up biting a bullet and buying some Featherman cones. And then we got super lucky and found a farm that was going out of business in Georgia. And Mrs. Cog Hill, Mary Carr, went over there and got a manual dunker made by Featherman and got their killing cone stand and had 6 cones on it. And that was a total game changer. Both those parts were total game changer. So then what happened with us is we were pretty much blowing and going. We really were. We were doing 40 or 50 every 8 weeks. And then we got a break. We got lucky. We got a break. The farm that we went and toured that got us into this, they shut their operation down for personal reasons and had nothing to do with the business. It was some personal stuff on their part. And so we contacted the restaurant or the catering service and the food truck that they were selling to, and they said, sure, we will buy from y'all since this place is going out. And that's how we end up where we are now. But what I would like for anybody to listen to this to learn is I'm telling you, anybody can raise meat chickens. Seriously. They are not that hard to raise. The hardest part about meat chickens is the processing part. That is hard work on processing day, depending on how many you got. But, you're doing 75, 50, or 50, 40, 50, 60, 70. That's a hard day's work. It really is. And to me, that's the hardest part. They are some, it is a little tedious. I got a video coming out this week, or really next week. I got it already filmed, but it's coming out next week. I hadn't had a chance to edit it yet, but it's my daily meat chicken chores. I did my rabbit chores the other day, and this is going to be what my daily routine is for me and Mrs. Cog Hill, because we kind of split the meat chicken chores, but it's the meat chicken chores, and it is kind of tedious a little bit. You have to go check on their health. Make sure you got fresh hay down, the way we raise ours. Now, if you're doing a chicken tractor, totally different. But the way we're doing ours is, we got the portable coop set up, got the electric poultry netting. They free range all day and go back up in the coop. But that coop, I want to keep fresh hay down, check the waterers, clean the waterers out, fill the waterers up, check the feed, fill the feeders up, make sure they got grit. It's not hard work. It's probably 15, 20 minutes. You do that maybe twice a day. So you're looking at 30 minutes to an hour, and I guess some people are not as tedious as we are. We're pretty, we're pretty, we're pretty serious when it comes to it, because it is a lot of money involved. It really is a lot of money involved. But for the most part, it's really not that hard. And when I say anybody can do it, you can do it. And you don't have to have acres and acres of land. And you don't have to have pasture land, which we found out with the setup that we're running. I mean, we're running our meat chickens in the woods. And I had a lot of people, or I say a lot of people, but I do have people say, well, shouldn't they be out on pasture? A chicken is an omnivore. It's not a herbivore. A chicken is not a grazer, okay? A chicken is from the jungle. It is a jungle fowl. That's what chickens are. And so running them in the woods is, in my opinion, putting them in their original natural environment, okay? So they're out there scratching the leaves around. I got weeds or whatever, little seedlings coming up. They'll peck on them. There's bugs, earthworms. There's a lot of stuff under that canopy of leaves that they have a field day with. So don't let anybody discourage you or tell you you're doing it wrong, because you're not doing it on pasture land, okay? Because in my opinion, that's just wrong, because no two farms alike. And if you want to farm, you do you, and you adapt and figure out what's best for your farm or your place. And that's what we have done here, and that's what I preach here a lot. The same with our pigs. We ran our pigs in the woods. And I know Joel Salton runs his pigs in the woods, and Hugh Farm runs their pigs in the woods. So don't let anybody tell you got to do it this one way. You do you, because no two farms are the same. No two properties are the same. Everything's different. So you do you. You figure out what's best for you, and you adapt. I preach that all the time. But I wanted people to know how we got started in the farming, and how we got our foot in the door, and what we did, and how we got to where we are now. And to just let everybody know that anybody can do it. If this is something that you want to do and you're passionate about, but you're a little nervous or a little scared, I'm telling you, anybody can do it. Just start off small and feel around, and just remember, you're going to make mistakes. I'm going to be honest with you. Our first, let's say we're doing every 2 months. So 2, 4, our first 6 months, we lost money on our batch of meat chickens. They wasn't big enough. We wasn't growing them big enough. So we lost money. Then I realized we had been making a huge mistake on converting ounces to pounds. And me and my wife never caught it on the first 3 or 4 batches. And there's no telling how much money we lost because of that. And that was just a human error. But just start off small, get your feet wet. Don't get upset because you're going to make mistakes. And just remember that you can do it. You really, really can do it. But I wanted people to know how we did it. If you got any questions or any comments, leave them in the comment section below, and I'll try my best to answer anybody's questions or comments. But guys, I hope you enjoyed this week's Cogcast Podcast. Stay tuned. I got a video about our meat chickens. I got a couple of them coming out this week. It's going to be one about what we do when the babies come in and how we make magic water for them. And also I got a daily routine meat chicken video coming out this week on our YouTube channel, on our main channel. And so stay tuned for those. Also check us out on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We're on there. We put a lot of information out there as well about our farm. And so, yeah, guys, check that out. Guys, as always, we'll catch y'all on the next one. Y'all be good.
Well, I don't mind to slow down anymore. I don't mind the sound of my shoes on your floor.